Hi everybody, welcome back to the Skookum Report. This is part one of our interview with Dave, a gentleman who had a confrontation with a Bigfoot while training in the military in the mountains of California. I hope you all enjoy it.
Like I said, I was in the military back in 1995, and I had gotten chosen. Our squad had been ramped up for cold weather and mountain operations training. We went to Bridgeport, California, which is, as the crow flies, is probably about 35 miles southwest of, I want to say Reno. I think it's the closest major city.
Okay.
And I was a relatively new team leader, and we drew fire watch, me and a partner of mine, and he's no longer with us, but we were sitting there, and I had been going through some family issues, going through the divorce, and I had the two children, so of course, you know, she had the ex had gotten custody of the kids, and it was hard to see them.
Right.
And it had just, you know, it was getting around about towards the holiday times, and it was a little tough, so we're just sitting there kind of shooting the shit.
Yeah.
And had to go to the bathroom. So, everything had been quiet, no big deal. Walked off, I don't know, probably about 45 yards, 45 meters, whatever, from the campsite. And the guy that was with me, I'll just call him Tom. Like I said, he's since passed on, but just walking and talking. You walk away from the campsite and standing there, and it was up in the mountains. Just a bitter cold, but completely clear night. Everything was still. There was no wind. There were very few clouds. You could see stars that you'd never seen before. It was just one of those nights where everything is just very still, very quiet, very peaceful, very calm. And I've just finished my business when Tom walked in front of me going back towards the bivouac site. And he muttered something to the effect of, let's get out of here, or I got to get the F out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in one of those modes where he wasn't quite walking, but he wasn't really full out running. He was kind of, in a little trot, but he meant to leave the area. And I kind of thought it was, I kind of thought it was weird. It was a little out of shape because he was one team leader and I was the other. And we had always we'd gone through before we deployed out onto our patrol. We had said, look, two man movement. You never go anywhere alone.
Okay.
So him leaving, even though he's just headed back towards the bivvy site, because it was almost a full moon, so there was ambient light, but it was just a little bit out of ordinary. It was something we agreed that we wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of looked at him, and I turned away from the way I was facing towards the tree line, and I kind of watched him disappear towards the wet site, and I'm like, all right, whatever. And like I said, the night was so calming. I was enjoying it. It was more of a very intense personal moment. And, I love we'll preface this, I'll explain that I love the outdoors. I've always loved camping and fishing, hiking. Yeah. So this moment here was just very surreal and peaceful, serene, calming. And it was just what I needed. So I stood there and I'm looking around. And like I said, now we're about 35, 40 meters from the main site, and I'm looking around, and I was just about to turn around and go back to the bivouac area myself, and I noticed that in this section, about another 25, 30 meters to my right, off diagonally about 45 meters from my front, or 45 degrees from my front, about 20, 25 feet away, was a section of tree line. And I know now, but I didn't really realize what had caught my eye until I saw the trees in just probably a 12-foot section of this tree line. And they were just swaying back and forth, just gently. Now, normally this would not have raised any questions. It wouldn't have piqued my curiosity. And so, like I said, this night was dead calm. There was no wind. There was no wind to speak of. I mean, even, you see your breath come out and the wind will push the steam from your breath, one way or the other in the direction that it's traveling. Mine just come out of my mouth and it would go straight up. There was no wind.
So completely still night.
Yeah, it's just still and calm. So I'm looking at this, and now my curiosity is peaking. Like, what the hell is this? And now, if there was wind, okay, we were on the side of I call it mountain. I mean, we were up at I think the elevation we were up was above had to have been above 5,000 foot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't exactly thin air, but we had noticed it was a little bit more heavier, labored breathing during any type of activities.
Right.
But if common sense tells you, if one section of these trees is going to be moving, if it was the wind or any other natural occurring phenomena, all the trees in this line, in this row of trees, would be doing the same thing. They'd all be swaying. Now, this led me to believe that there was something or someone there that was moving around. Now, my first instinct was, well, maybe this is one of the instructors, screwing around, and, maybe they were trailing us to see how we were, how we were conducting ourselves, what we were doing, if we had taken any of the things that we had learned in the classes, if we were properly applying them to our patrol. So I'm saying, okay, well, no, I don't think it would be an instructor, and especially not in the dark like this, just kind of trailing us from that far away. The instructors would come out and they would actually walk up. They'd stay a little bit behind. If they had any questions or they really wanted to see anything, they'd walk right up into your patrol. Now,
that
like I said, this
wouldn't be the safest thing to do neither. To be messing with you like that at night while you're
no, but this plays into it. This plays into the story later on where I'm going to with this, what happened, because we only had blanks. Okay, I was carrying an M16 A2 rifle, but I only had blank rounds in it. Okay, and now all they're going to do is make a popping sound. Loud, it's loud, but it's only a popping sound. There's no projectile. There's no nothing. Besides, any of your listeners out there that know anything about the M16-2, with a live round, the son of a bitch, if you had it doped up right, it was dead on. Okay, these were dead balls accurate. But with a blank, okay, the gas from the burning of the powder inside the casing of the round is what causes everything to cycle, the bolt carrier, everything. The blowback and the gas pressure built up from the sudden ignition and burning of that powder is what causes the bolt to blow back. And then when it comes forward, because the buffer spring pushes it back forward, it hits the bottom of another round, forces it up into the chamber, and then it seats. Okay, and this is the cyclic, this is the cyclic function of the M16A2. So, with the M16A2 in a blank round, they had what was called a blank firing adapter, a BFA. All it was a little red box that fit over the end of the muzzle. Mm-hmm. And in the center of this box, when lined up properly, was a screw and a plug-in that actually went into the barrel. It sealed the end of the barrel.
Okay.
Because blank rounds for the M16A2, the 5.56 rounds that we used back then, okay, which were actually Vietnam era rounds, the charge did not produce enough pressure for the blank to cycle the bolt. Because there was no round, there was no projectile going through the barrel wasn't plugged up, and therefore all the pressure escapes through the barrel, and it doesn't cycle the bolt properly. And you get hang-ups and jams, feed jams, all sorts of problems. So I had on a blank firing adapter at the end of weapon, which looks ridiculous because it's the weapon, and then there's this little square red box at the end, and he's just like, okay, whatever. But I mean,
makes up for the loss of pressure because there's no bullet in the.
Because there's no projectile in the barrel, that plug that goes into the end of the barrel seals it up, and it basically takes the place of the projectile going through the barrel, and it keeps the pressure and the gases from escaping, which allows everything to cycle properly.
Gotcha.
But
what year did you say this was again?
This was 1995.
Okay, 95.
This was we're talking end of October, beginning of November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right about there. So we it wasn't anything out of the ordinary to see an instructor come up and say, okay, look, this is what you guys are doing. This is what we've set up. You were told in this situation, X, Y, and Z is what you're doing. You're doing this right, but maybe over here you could do this a little bit differently, blah, blah, blah. And they walk you through, and it's just training. I've been asked before about it, and it's nothing specialized. It's not special forces training. It's nothing super, high speed, low drag. It's just training, cold weather training. And Bridgeport is also where we go through our mountain warfare training. We learn to climb using ropes, rappel, everything, bridge gaps and ravines, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're there. This was the second to last. This was the last night of our patrol. We were due to head back to the command area the next day, finish out our patrol. So I'm standing there and I'm looking at these trees and I'm thinking, okay, well, given everything, I don't think it's an instructor. Now I'm not super big into hunting. I don't know everything about animals, but I'm thinking, okay, well, if there are any bears in the area, which, they do have some bear in the area. There's not a huge population, but anything like that in that type of time of year, at least from what I knew, I would assume they had been hibernating.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and now my curiosity, and it's a fault of mine because I'm curious by nature anyways. I see something that I don't understand, or I don't, I think is interesting. I'm just going to go right towards it. I don't think about danger or safety to myself or anything. I just, oh shit, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
So
what's going on here?
Yeah. So I take a couple steps. I'm looking, and no, I'm not scared. Like I said, just curious, but I'm walking slow, and I have my rifle off my shoulder. I've taken it off the sling, and I'm carrying it at the low ready, which means the butt is in my shoulder, but the muzzle's pointed down towards the ground. It's a 45-degree angle across my body. I'm walking. I take a few steps. I stop and looking. And now, like I said, it was almost a full moon, so there was a good deal of light, but the tree line itself was so thick that it was just like a wall of dark. And you couldn't even it was so dark you really couldn't make out individual trees. It was just a wall of darkness. So I get there and I stop. Now I'm probably, it started out as probably 20-25. So right now I'm probably between 15 and 20 meters. And I'm looking, and I don't know what caused me to really look up, but I just popped my head up just a little. And I noticed steam, breath.
Okay.
Coming out of this one area of the tree. Now, this is the same area where the trees were moving. Now, the limbs and everything in this area were still moving. It was a little bit slower, and it was just kind of a gentle sway, kind of back and forth. There was no. It was almost rhythmic. And as I watched, I realized that the actual sway almost became kind of rhythmic with the breath that would come out. Now, these were long, long exhalations of steam and breath with a large pause in between it. Okay, and as I've gone on to discover after that, this happened in '95, so we're talking about 25 years ago.
25 years, yeah.
So throughout my time of going going into and actually getting into investigating this type of phenomenon, it's not, I've come to realize that, okay, number one, this is not a human being, whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the breathing of a normal human at this elevation. The pause between breaths is too long. The actual exhalation is too long. So this is an immense lung capacity that we just don't have.
Air.
Yeah. So now I'm really curious, and I kind of raise my rifle up a little bit. Now I'm not looking down the sights, but I raise it up a little bit, and I start taking cautious steps towards it. Now I'm about 15, 16 meters from this tree line. I stopped and I'm looking, and I could hear a deep breathing sound. It wasn't not really a growl, but you could tell when something's breathing heavy. You could hear it. It doesn't just breathe in and out. There's actually a sound that it makes, forcing the air in and out. But it was very deep. It was very, and like I said, it along with the breaths and the steam that you could see coming out in the moonlight, it was rhythmic with the breathing. Okay, so everything's starting to fall into place. There's something here. I have no idea what it is.
You said you're about 14 or 15 meters from the tree line?
Yeah.
And what's
that?
Is that about 50 feet or so?
1 meter is just shy of 3 foot.
Okay.
So we'd be looking at probably about 40. Yeah, probably about 45.
You're pretty
45
close.
foot. Yeah, it was pretty close. I'm not gonna lie. So now I've gone through the progressions of, okay, what could it be, what couldn't be, what is it, what isn't it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what it is. I'm pretty damn sure that it's not an instructor. It's not the bear in a tree.
Yeah.
You know what? And again, this is I've talked to several people about this. A couple of my friends from the military that I still keep in touch with, and they're like, yeah, shit kicked in, because I instantly raised the rifle. Now I'm actively looking down the sights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm still not registering in my brain. Okay, you're going in now, and I'm now at this point, as I'm slowly approaching this. Now I'm starting to get that feeling of not dread but danger. Something's not right, and so I'm looking at it and I'm like, back of my mind, my brain's going, hey, look, idiot, you only got blanks.
Right.
If there's something there, man, weird deal. And the only thing I had is I carried a sheathed K-bar on my web belt and my deuce gear. And so the only thing I had was a K-bar, which is, fairly deadly in the hands of somebody that's trained to use it. But if it's anything of any size or importance, it's not going to do a whole lot.
Right. So
my mind is, in the back of my mind, there's this voice in my head screaming, look, no, this is not right. Let's back up. The curiosity in me is like, I got to see what the hell this is now. So I keep going. And I approach after another few steps. Now I'm probably sitting at about, I'm probably standing there right about 12, 13 meters from the tree line. I take another step, and it stepped out.
Oh, man.
Now this thing stepped out, and Bob, when I tell you this was 10 feet tall, if it was an inch, it's no bullshit. You hear people in situations where they get scared and they say, oh my God, it was huge. It was a monster.
Yeah.
It was 20 feet tall. Look, I'm trained in estimating.
Observer, yeah.
I'm trained in estimating distance, size, everything. And it just for my job, my MOS in the military. Now I was 0351, which is anti-armor assault. So I had to be able to judge distance, which is your range to target, size of target, in order to employ the weapons that I employed properly and effectively. So I'm confident in every bit when I tell you this thing was every bit of 10 foot tall and at least 4 to 5 feet wide at the shoulders.
Yeah. That is amazing.
It was, well, amazing. Amazing is one word you could use to describe it, I guess.
Right.
But, you know, and it's really funny because, yeah. Oh, this thing was huge. Shy of detail, even though there was a lot of ambient light. Everything was shy of detail. And, get over there. Dog, I'm sorry, my dog. But everything's shy of fine detail and just more along the lines of general features and shapes. And that's all I could really make out. You know, I couldn't see exact, you know, form of the nose, the lips. I couldn't follow the jawline, but I could tell through the shadow and what light was there.
Mm-hmm.
I could make out, you know, approximate sizes with height. And it's,
now, a lot of people talk about their eyes. Now, did you notice any, like, glowing or red glowing or anything reflected?
No, I did not.
Eye shine or anything? Okay.
No, there was no eye shine. There was no glow to it. The head was, God, it was actually size-wise. If I can give you a visual aid, at least the size of a basketball, if not bigger. Now it did seem to come to more of a hump on the top end of the head. I wouldn't exactly call it conical.
Okay.
But there was a hump, a somewhat, I guess you consider it a point. But there was a hump at the top of the head. You could tell that there was hair. You could tell it was covered in hair and not just like fur.
Mm-hmm.
But
how about the smell? Did you smell anything? Or? No, I did not. Mm-hmm. And I was asked that by another gentleman who interviewed me, and there was no smell. Now, like I said, going back to this particular evening in the weather, remember this is one of those bone-chilling nights. Okay, yeah.
this is one of those temporal climate type where you're breathing in and out through your nose. The hairs in your nose are freezing. The moisture from your breath is freezing on your mustache. Yeah. You know, it's real cold. So maybe even if there was even the slightest, even if it was a slight smell, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But there was no overpowering rotten egg, wet dog stuff. None of that. And so, and this all leads to me still, even though it kind of moved and kind of stepped into the tree line where I could make out the features of it, I still took I think it was 2 more steps towards it.
Wow.
And again, like I said, you know, my curiosity gets the better of me, and it's like, hey, jackass, what are you gonna do? There's nothing here that you okay, feed yourself to the animal. I mean, just offer yourself up as dinner or a midnight snack, because that's all you are.
Maybe subconsciously you were trying to get a better look just to make sure you were seeing what you thought you were seeing.
And I've talked to a couple of people, but when I say I've investigated this, and this is something I didn't even get into with Duke, because like I said, we just kind of did a real quick touch up of the experience and what happened. Mm-hmm. But he was very spot on in his analysis, because when I looked at this thing and to take all in its entirety, I literally had to lift my head and look up to take this whole thing into perspective. And you know, I've talked to people that I know that are I've actually talked to a psychiatrist, not for therapy, but just to get a perspective. Mm-hmm. And you know, we were sitting there having a couple drinks, and he says, "Look," he says, in times of extreme, you know, emotional insecurity or stress or fear, the body will fill in, the mind will fill in what we don't understand. And so I believe that's why there's a lot of, all of the most stories that come out are pretty much 80% the same. They all share familiar aspect. There's always some kind of detail that's a little bit different. And I believe it's because, and this was the conversation that we were having where I believe it was Debbie got in touch with you
and made the introduction. And the reason I was talking to Debbie about it is because they were talking about stress and PTSD. Now, as a combat trained Marine, I do carry, I have a very slight case, but I do carry PTSD from my experiences.
Okay.
And I believe that these types of experiences, for those who've actually had one and aren't just trying to make one up, we all carry a small bit, okay, of PTSD, because these things affect you in a way, you know, these things affect you in a way that is very traumatic. You're seeing something that your entire life you have been conditioned to believe does not exist. There's no way in hell this can exist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's misidentification. Okay, look, I'm telling you right now, okay? I'm telling you right now, I've seen bears on their hind legs, okay? I've been hunt bear a couple of times with a cousin of mine. I've seen them stand up. I've seen them on their hind legs. And yes, they can walk, and they can walk a good, 10, 15, 20 foot, but they wobble.
Right.
They are not comfortable, and they're not natural on 2 feet. And they kind of waddle side to side when they walk.
Yeah.
Even when they're down on all fours. Okay, when they run or when they move, there's an undulation. It's almost like they're hopping. Their legs also swing out to the side a little bit, and they walk kind of, I think people call it bow-legged.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the reasons why it was explained to me when I went hunting, when I started going bear hunting with my cousin. If, God forbid, they ever charge you, you don't run uphill, you run downhill, because their weight and their momentum and the way they walk and place their feet when they run and walk, supposedly, and like I said, I'm no expert, but supposedly this puts them at a disadvantage, and they can actually stumble and fall going downhill because they're not made for that. Now, if you're on a flat run or you're going uphill, you're done. If you're trying to climb a tree, you're done.
Yeah.
This is what was explained to me. So, I mean, I've got 1,000,001 things going through my head, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Now, instinct told me, shit, head back to the bivvy area, get everybody up.
Yeah.
Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to lead this thing back to a smorgasbord of guys. Now, there's 14 of us there. Okay, 13 plus me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lead them back to my guys. No, not quite. So what do? Well, I could take off running downhill, but this thing isn't a bear. It looks very comfortable standing on its 2 feet right there and just kind of swaying side to side. Are the same principles going to apply? Is it going to get off balance and fall running downhill? Am I going to fall running downhill in the snow?
Right.
I don't know. So my mind is just inundated with these thoughts. What if this, what if that, what if that? And I raised the rifle up again, and I'm looking at it down the sights, and which is pretty much useless in the dark like that. And back then we didn't carry optics, not for the M16.
Okay.
We were all open iron sights, so But I'm looking at it, and when I raised my rifle to look at it, when I raised the rifle, it freaked. And Bob, when I say it freaked, I swear to Christ, you could have heard this thing for 100 miles away. It bellowed, roared, groaned, screamed, shrieked all at once. And this sound, there's really no one way to describe this sound.
Mm-hmm.
And when it did this, it kind of rolled its shoulders. If anybody remembers the old, I'm kind of dating myself, showing my age here, but if you remember the original Incredible Hulk.
Yes. Yeah.
When he would, after he would finish his change, Ferrigno would go into this pose where he would kind of lean forward a little bit. He would roll his shoulders, and his arms and his fists would point downwards, and he would squeeze and flex every muscle in his upper body.
Yeah, I know exactly.
That's the best way I can describe what this thing did. And it just kind of lunged forward, and it took that pose, and it let loose with this scream, roar, whatever you want to call it. And I felt it again. I'm probably at 12 to 13 meters, maybe closer to 11 or 12 because of the steps that I took. And so we're looking at 35, 36 foot at the very most.
And
Which
it's
cover that ground in steps or 4 steps or something.
what I saw. Okay, what I saw, given the dimensions that I estimated with the long arms and the sheer sight of it, it would have taken less than 2 steps, and it could have reached out and grabbed me. Okay, so this is beyond danger close. This is like, hey, you're an asshole for standing here, dude. Get the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, that was one of the thoughts that was rolling through the back of my head. Everything in my, every fiber of my being was screaming at me, get the fuck out.
Right.
Why are you standing here? Get out. And, I kind of found it funny afterwards. I didn't even really realize it at first, but afterwards I kind of found it funny because, everybody sits there and they see something that scares them or shocks them. And one of the first things out of their mouth is, oh, shit. Well, I did. I shit all over myself. I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
I was physically terrified. Now, like I said,
that happens more than most people think it does. I've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah,
that people actually just lose complete control of their bodily functions.
And I think that's what it is. It's not a conscious thing that you do, but it's
right.
just, it's just you lose when you get into that type of situation. It's almost like when a person dies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't talk about it, and they don't mention it. But when a person dies, one of the things that happens is the body goes limp. The muscles are no longer contracted to hold in everything, so they urinate and they defecate on themselves.
Right.
Okay. And this happens more often than not. Now, it's not a 100% guarantee every time, right. But more often than not, whatever fluids or solid waste that they're holding in their body, even if you don't realize you're holding it in, it's there and it releases.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I am not, like I said, I've been through some things and I've seen some things, and I have never ever faced my own mortality. I've never faced anything that scared me that bad. And even to this day, I still don't realize completely why it terrified me as much as it did. And it wasn't even, I don't think I was afraid of dying. I think it's more along the lines of, like I said before, this is not supposed to exist.
Yeah.
What am I seeing, and why am I seeing this? And I think the confusion led my body for at least a few seconds to completely just go numb.
That's quite a mixture of emotions too: fear, disbelief, confusion, panic, all of that at one time. I mean, it's.
And like I said, I think that's exactly what I experienced. I think it led to a complete. Well, I won't say a complete, but a temporary and almost complete reboot of my mental systems, because it's such a tremendous.
I keep thinking of that robot going, does not compute. Smoke coming out of the back of the robot's head.
Yeah, I mean, if you
that's what I thought of when.
If you can imagine the human physiological equivalent to that, that's exactly what it is. And, you're looking at this and it's okay. Well, this shit don't make sense. It's no, and you can't think. Now, like I said, I've spoken to people, and I've been told that nine chances out of 10, the reason I stayed even conscious and capable of moving even after that period of, like I said, it was like 2 to 3 seconds, maybe a little bit more, where I just couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. One of the main reasons why I was able to continue and stay conscious for like I did was because of my training. And going back to look in, seeing how I approached my emotions, everything that I was thinking of, looking at the calculations that I was making, and just everything all together, I can only say that I believe it was a lot of it was my training overrode my conscious mind, and said, this is how we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. This is how you're going to move, and you're going to do this. You're going to keep going forward.
And this has been part one of our interview with Dave, a gentleman who had a confrontation with a Bigfoot while in the military training in the mountains of California. Now, if you or anybody you know has had a Bigfoot encounter or a sighting, and you want to have it on the channel, shoot me an email at skookumreport@gmail.com. That's skookumreport@gmail.com. And I'll be sure to get it up on the channel for you, no problem at all. And don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and leave a comment and say hi. I enjoyed chatting with you guys. You guys are awesome. Stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with Dave, probably tomorrow evening. All right, guys, take care. God bless. Bye.